if you can provide structure to these conversations, that benefits the audience, which is connected more meaningfully to each other, benefits producers who have a new means of engagement with the audience that's out there. It benefits broadcasters who can get much more meaningful feedback and sort of measurement in terms of what is actually going on during the broadcast. And it benefits brands which now have a structured conversation that they can enter into meaningfully. So you hear this phrase a lot, the Foursquare of television. And it's like everybody who couldn't be mayor of something like rolls their own Foursquare, like builds their own. And so this idea that, that the dynamics of Foursquare could somehow be translated to TV is sort of interesting, right? And you see it, what that means, what that actually turns out to mean for a lot of the players in the space is two things. It means that you're checking in, that you're somehow declaring what you're doing, where you're doing it, or what you're watching, et cetera, and in quotes, game mechanics. And game mechanics, and I should say that I ran a game development company for 5 years. What game mechanics have come to mean is that you get a badge by doing something. And the question is, if you can just have a badge from anybody at any time for doing whatever thing, and these are always free, what makes them valuable, right? Like, what makes that badge actually valuable? What makes it mean something to you? And I think the real point is that what game mechanics actually describe is the interaction between people, not the interaction between a person and a system, a person in a show, and a person in a place. It's the interaction between people. And what you see it in Foursquare in the mayor dynamics, which is that it's not just that you become the mayor of a place, it's that you specifically displace somebody else. And it's not just that you lose mayorship of some place, it's that somebody else has pushed you out. That's game mechanics. It's actually describing a stylized form of social interaction between people, right? And that is the addictive quality of it. And so the question is, if we're going to bring game mechanics around these types of social interaction to television, what does it mean there, right? Because it certainly doesn't look like being the mayor of the Super Bowl. With that, we just sort of took that as the basic question to answer with Starling, which Kenny will describe.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. So, okay, so this is our new logo. This is Starling, and so these are some screens from the software that we're going to be releasing at the end of August or early September, and these are the first time that we're showing it publicly. So this is the first screen. You log in, and what we realize is that the reason that everybody's so enamored of this idea of Foursquare of television is that obviously it has to start with the check-in. But we wanted to reinvent the check-in to make more sense in terms of being more visual and live within the visual language that television is so known for. So, so this is our first screen here. You come in. What's trending? What's the most popular shows that people are watching right now? Because you may just be interested in what's most popular in the universe. You also might be interested in what your friends are watching now, and you might want to join them. So that's where at the bottom of the screen here, there's the avatars of my friends, and then also telling me which show. So here's 3 of my friends, and they're watching Lost. So how do you navigate this, right? You end up with this very sort of like thick visual layout. So we're picking up stuff from the iPhone in terms of, you roll your thumb over that, and it's like, oh, so my friend John is actually watching X Factor here. What does that mean to me? I sort of click in, and what that means is there's 3 possible contexts for me to actually want to interact around the show or with my friend. And so those 3 are, I want to join my friend John in terms of we want to have a private conversation. Can you believe that just happened? This is sort of a very private space. I want to join my friends. It's a little more public. I want to sort of like be in a room with people that I know. Or, it's a huge finale. I just want to experience the great, the 10,000 people that are all participating around something on X Factor or the World Cup or the Emmys, and then I want to participate on a bigger level. So what we're really trying to do is really smooth the funnel from the first check-in to deeper engagement, and to then sort of like build that out. And if you can remember, like 10 years ago, it used to be enough to say, I got 1 million people to my website. Nobody asked, what did they do once they got there? And I think there's some people in the room who I've gone through those battles with a long time ago. And but now what we're doing is saying, look, that's just the first step. So now I know that we want to participate. And we're thinking, well, what do we want to let people do in this ecosystem? And what is actually natural for them to do? So we went, we always like to look at what's actually going on in the environment now where we can draw some lessons from. And so we looked at Twitter, because it's a great big organic soup. And everybody knows, okay, there's 140 characters. That seems like enough. But then we took a look at how people are actually tweeting around TV. And it turns out they don't really use all 140 characters because it's the second screen, and they're actually doing these sort of like shorter bursts, these sort of like more micro, I don't know, nano communications? What are we going to call it below microblogging? You know, so we're like, okay, well, if it's not really 140 characters, we're just going to limit it to 40 characters because we really want this to be really tight and small and just like something that you do, you touch base while you're watching the show, and then you move on. So now we've got this really sort of like very tight communication, and that actually opened up some really interesting creative conversations back in the shop. And we're like, well, what can we do with if it's really just a short burst? And that actually lets us pick up the visual language of television and the way in which television promotion works, and actually say, so this is your status update. This is what you say within the Starling system. It's like, is that even a song? So I'm watching X Factor with my friend John. I make this status update, and Starling formats your status update into something that's visually appealing, and then sort of turns that into actually not just a graphic, but actually a live software object that lives within the ecosystem and can travel and has properties as it moves on. And that opens up a lot of really exciting opportunities for gameplay, for user interaction, and I think, you know, and for marketing. So, you know, so this is one way it might look. Here's another, and I think basically we can work with television shows, we can work with brands to create styles that match, so that now all of a sudden the status update has been elevated from just sort of like a simple piece of text into something that actually is much more expressive because of the creativity that we bring to it. So we can also do things where in the system, while you're watching the show, so X Factor is not here yet in the US, it'll be here next year, but one of the aspects is there's a boot camp. So we can actually pick up the vernacular of the show and turn those into objects that can be collected as people are watching and actually build interactivity that is bespoke for the content. So here's this item, and that also gives us the opportunity to then work with advertisers and brands in terms of collectible objects that are tied to the show. And then you can have something where it's like, you completed that collection. So now we have a very, very simple game mechanic. You're collecting, you're completing, and that's just the beginning. We think that we can go, because it's not just an image, it's actually software. So there's our ability to really sort of make these things into mini games, all kinds of stuff. So we're creating a whole set of software that augments television and makes it a lot more interactive. Did I make all the points? Yeah, I think so. So that's what we're ready to show right now. We have a lot more that we're working on as we sort of evolve the product. You know, right now we're working with Fremantle, and we're working with J. Walter Thompson, and you know, we have an office here in New York where Kevin and I work, and then we have a partner in Stockholm where we have some engineers that worked at Ericsson building a back end that is telephone grade. You know, but we're looking for partners, and we're open for business. So thank you. That's it. Okay.